Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Take Me Out to the Podcast. I am not Johnny Jackson. I am Jason Hamby, your new host. It has been a little bit over a month since our last episode, but we're back taking over for Johnny. Not going to be an easy task, but something I'm really looking forward to. The big day is here. It's almost opening day. It's this Thursday, April 1st. We're going to be talking all things this season, 21 season. Today, I got my friend Nick Geddes with me. Nick, how are you and how pumped are you for Thursday?
I'm very pumped for Thursday. I got it circled on my calendar, 4 o'clock, Rays, Marlins. For my sake, that's what I'm looking for. But this is one of the best times of the year with baseball coming back here in the spring, and I'm ready to get it going.
Perfect. Well, let's jump right into it. It was an offseason full of fireworks. We saw a lot of big moves. Just to name maybe the top 10, we had Arenado to the Cardinals, Lindor to the Mets, Bauer to the Dodgers, Blake Snell and Yu Darvish to the Padres, Liam Hendricks to the White Sox, George Springer to the Blue Jays, Charlie Morton to the Braves. I know that's your guy over in Tampa. Which one of these kind of sticks out the most? I know all of them are huge, but maybe just one.
You got to start with Nolan Arenado, in my opinion. And I've been on the record. Nolan Arenado, to me, I still think he's one of the more underrated players in the game, which is weird. But you go look at the guy, what he's done. He's 35 and over 100 in the last 5 years of baseball up until the 2020 shortened season, which was not his best year, by the way. But a lot of guys slumped a little bit. But I think he's one of the premier players in all of baseball. I still think he's right there as a top 10 player in the league. And I think it's a travesty he never won an MVP in Colorado, especially 2016 when you compare him side to side with Chris Bryant that year. So I still think he has a lot left in the tank there, and I don't really buy into the Colorado factor whatsoever there. I just don't. I've always thought for the most part it's kind of it's just not. I don't think there's any credence to it really, and especially with a guy like that who's just hit his entire career. I think he's going to do the same thing with St. Louis, and he's going to be a nice fold there with Paul Goldschmidt. I think that's one of the better first base, third base duos now in the league, if not the best. And definitely a jolt they needed in that lineup because I think they are probably the favorite in that NL Central, even without Arenado, but now they're absolutely above there because they definitely needed some more guys in that lineup to complement Goldschmidt. You know, you have your Paul DeYoungs and your Carlsons, your O'Neills, your Baders, but I think you can't put a price tag on what Arenado would, and they really didn't give up much for Arenado either. It was one of the highest really of the decade when it comes to trades in baseball. So it starts with Nolan Arenado. That's the best move, and he was the best player move too.
I 100% agree. I like how you said the heist. They get Arenado. The Rockies give them $50 million towards his contract, and they don't give up a top 100 prospect. That's about as good as it gets from the Cardinals. And like you said, maybe the best corner duo in the league. So every year, there's always two teams that get way too much hype, whether it be from a flash in the pan last year or some offseason moves. But we'll start with that. Give me two teams that are just being way overhyped that you don't think are going to perform too well this year.
I'm going to go with the Twins. Every year, I feel like they're kind of a sentimental hype favorite to get out of that AL Central, and perhaps a lot of that is due to the weakness that has been the AL Central in the past few years with the bottom three. The Twins this year, you look at the rotation options. You have Jose Barrios, and then it goes to Randy Dobnak. They're not. I don't know how they're going to place Jake Odorizzi and bringing in J.A. Happ, who was basically throwing batting practice for New York the last couple of years. I just don't buy into that one either. And then they obviously let Eddie Rosario go, another guy who slumped last year, but before that, he was a 30-90 kind of guy that you could rely on in the middle of that lineup. I don't know how much more you're going to get at Josh Donaldson either. He seems like he's hitting the downturn. And then Nelson Cruz, we cross our fingers that the cliff is not coming, even though he hasn't showed any effect to it whatsoever. But I'm just really not sold on the pitching of the Twins. That rotation to me is very weak, and I don't buy Jose Barrios right now as an ace. I think it's hard to put him in that category. He's been very inconsistent. I think he's more suited as a two, but there's going to be a lot on his shoulders there in the Central, and I think it's going to be a better AL Central also. I think Kansas City definitely is going to take strides this year. I think Detroit looks much better. Chicago obviously is the favorite, I think, by many coming out of that division. So I think Minnesota is going to get lost in the shuffle here this year.
I like what you said. I'm not quite ready to give up on Donaldson yet. And Cruz has given me no indication that he's going to slow down at all. And I like the Andrelton Simmons signing at shortstop. I think if Kenta Maeda can kind of do what he did last year, and they can get 2018, 2019 Berrios back, and maybe 2017 Michael Pineda, they can kind of. I mean, they have the run production. They certainly have the run production. They have, they might lead the league in bombs again this year. For me, one of the teams I think is getting too much hype, and maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think it's the Blue Jays. And they had one of the splashier off seasons. They brought in Springer on a big deal. They got Marcus Semien from the A's shortstop. But it's the pitching for me. And they might have a top 3 lineup in baseball. So you got Springer, Semien, Lourdes Gurriel, Teoscar Hernandez. They got Vlad, Bichette, and Kevin Biggio. But it's the pitching. So already their biggest signing, I thought, other than Springer, Kirby Yates, he's done for the year. That's their closer. Then their rotation. After Hyun-Jin Ryu, I have no issues with him. But then you're looking at Tanner Roark, batting practice, Robbie Ray, ultra batting practice,
Big batting practice,
Steven Matz, and Ross Stripling. Ross Stripling had a great year last year. But previous to that, a career 5+ ERA. Robbie Ray had like a 6. I mean, he was giving up. I mean, the guy might have needed neck surgery from all the times he's turning around and watching the ball fly out of the stadium. And they have plenty of potential of these guys who can turn it around. Like Steven Matz, I can definitely see having a bounce back year. He's young enough, but I just don't see enough pitching and enough bullpen help, especially with the loss of Yates, for the Blue Jays to contend as well as people think. I have them 3rd in the AL East, behind the Yankees and your Rays. And if they make the playoffs as a wild card, that wouldn't surprise me. But I cannot foresee any kind of postseason run with that starting pitching.
I was thinking the same exact thing. I mean, the starting pitching for the Blue Jays, I like how everybody just glosses over that. We look at this beautiful, great lineup, which I think is going to absolutely yam fest there in that AL East, but that pitching is just not going to get it done, in my opinion. And I'll throw another team out there that I think is being royally overhyped, but there's no shocker here, is the New York Mets.
Oh man, you took mine.
The New York Mets, and I'm not saying they aren't stacked. They look very stacked on paper, but what can go wrong will go wrong for the New York Mets. It always seems to happen, and they always have a lot of health issues. And they already, Syndergaard obviously had the Tommy John a year ago. He might join the rotation at some point this year, who knows. Carlos Carrasco is a guy who's already on the shelf at the moment. So you'll have to see what happens from there. They brought in Taijuan Walker to also get back into that rotation as well. And of course they have Stroman. The rotation is always going to be strong. I feel like even without the injuries, they find a way to get it. Even throw Seth Lugo in there to get some starts. But I just have my concerns really with that. And this is a very loaded division, a very, very loaded division. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to hold up there because they play such 500 baseball. And I know Francisco Lindor is a big shiny name and he's going to help no matter about that. But I don't know if he's going to be enough to get them over the hump and beat the Braves. And I think the Marlins are still going to be there. I think they're going to turn into almost a variation of the Rays this year, where they're going to be able to piece it together and going forward, be competitive. So the Mets, for me, I'm not buying it right now. I need to see. I want to see I'm curious to see where they're at in July. And then we're going to see if some of these names, who just look out, because if it's going bad, you would see they start peeling it off a little bit. So I'm wait and see mode with the Mets right now.
The Mets are going to Met. And that's what I keep going back to. Until they prove me wrong, I will never buy into their hype. But I think if they can play, above 500 ball and then get Syndergaard back, that will be, I feel like that's the deciding factor for them. Whether they're, able to take over the Braves potentially in the division is going to come down to, the pairing of Syndergaard and Stroman, because I don't think we have any doubts about who DeGrom is. He's going to give us, another Cy Young or top 3 year. But other than that, and they need Pete Alonso to be the 2019 Pete Alonso, not the 220 hitting Pete Alonso from last year. We didn't really talk before this at all, but I mean, so far everything that you said has been mirror image. My team that I'm real high on this year is the Miami Marlins. Everybody's picking them to be the seller of the NL East. I'm not buying it. I don't know why people are forgetting that this team was in the NLDS last year, with maybe the youngest team in the league. They picked up one of my favorite players, Adam Duvall. This guy just hits. He rakes. He's incredibly underrated. They get him for 1 year, $4.5 million. He's going to slide out from left field, maybe hit right behind Starling Marte. But this team has a lot of guys who maybe you've heard of them, maybe you've not, but a lot of young guys coming up, and they're just here to prove everybody wrong. They did it last year. I think they're going to do it this year. And I don't think there's any way in my mind that this team wins 70 games and finishes last in the division. And the only way I could see that, yes, the NL East is the most competitive division in baseball, in my opinion. I feel like there's 5 teams that are all going to be competing with each other and stealing wins. So for that reason, maybe they, I feel like if they were let's put it this way, if they were in the AL Central, this team goes 500. With the Royals, the Indians having a down year, and the Tigers, they go 500 at least in the AL Central. We're not going to see that in the NL East, but certainly a team not to go to full sleep on.
Yeah, I think I agree with you a lot there on Miami. Like I said a little earlier, I think they're going to turn into a variation of the Rays. I truly believe that, where they're going to be, they might spend more money than the Rays, I think, because it is Miami. I think they have a lot more money coming in with the Jeter being there. But for right now, they're piecing it together. And I think they're being very cautious of their young guys too, like Sixto Sanchez, who they're trying to work up before they put them in the rotation. So I like what they're doing. Another team I'm pretty high on, and I think they're dangerous. I really do, because nobody is talking about them, and that's the Boston Red Sox. Not many times we don't talk about the Boston Red Sox, but I think they are dangerous. The lineup, listen, obviously we have no Mookie Betts. We get that. And that stinks. Don't get me wrong. But you go up and down this lineup, there's not many better lineups in baseball, in my opinion, still left when they're all healthy. And that's going to be the key, because JD Martinez last year was battling through some things, and he had the worst year of his career, but I think he's going to bounce back. Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers are definitely 2 of the better young players in baseball that don't get talked about enough. And then I also think, Bobby Dahlbeck has been crushing the ball here in spring training. Michael Chavis has too. Christian Vasquez. Alex Verdugo, I think, is going to take a big step, and he hit over 300 last year. So I think he's obviously not Mookie Betts, but I think you can do a lot worse and I'm saying all this knowing that this pitching is not good. Okay, last year they were just throwing guys out there for throwing guys out their sake. I mean, Robert Stark, for example, was getting meaningful innings on this team, and Eovaldi was the ace. But they do get Eduardo Rodriguez back, who I think was turning into a fringe kind of guy, not an ace, but a kind of a fringe guy that could be a 2 in your rotation. But they're going to get him back. They brought in Garrett Richards on a 1-year deal. Let's see if he can kind of replicate what he was able to do last year with the Padres. So I think they're just dangerous because nobody's talking about them. And this is still quietly, I think, a pretty talented team. And I actually think, back to our Blue Jays point, I think I still would trust them more than Toronto. And I really do. And I'm saying that even though that Toronto slipped into the playoffs too last year as well. But definitely is a little bit dangerous. And even though it's just spring training, I think right now they're hitting the cover off the ball. They look ready to go.
And this Kike Hernandez signing might be huge for them. This guy, I mean, we've never been able to see what he's capable of in a full year. And that's something I'll be looking for, is what is Kike capable of in 162 games? Hopefully he stays healthy just for that reason alone. And man, yeah, he goes right in that lineup and fits perfectly. Let's do some division winners, some division winner predictions. And since we've kind of been in the AL East, we'll start there. I have the Yankees. I don't want to have the Yankees. I want to believe that the Rays can do what the Rays do, lose their biggest player and still compete at the top. I just can't slot them over the Yankees right now. I know Voit is out for the first month. For the Yankees, it always comes down to injuries and pitching. I mean, that's what we've seen for the last, 4 or 5 years, is their lineup's great. They have injuries. The pitching, it's the first or second guy, and then a severe drop off. And I think we're going to see that this year. Obviously, it's Garrett Cole, one of the best pitchers in baseball. But then after that, you got Corey Kluber. Not really sure what we're going to get there. He's not the same guy, obviously, that was a Cy Young candidate years ago. Jameson Taillon, I loved that trade for them. He's a young guy who has a lot of potential, but that's still a big question mark. And then Domingo Herman, and then maybe getting Pedro Severino back, or Luis Severino, my bad. Maybe in late June, July. It's the pitching, and I don't know if that holds up. I'm good with them, but off of years past, the Rays have been able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, you can always bank on what's going to happen with the Yankees, and that's injuries, like you said. Um, it's so hard for me to on this pick because being the Rays fan here, there's nothing I want to do. I don't want to pick the Yankees for anything. I'm trying to take the bias out of it. I do think this is the year Giancarlo Stanton stays healthy. I for some reason I just think that I have my reservations about the Rays this year a little bit, just a little. I'm cautiously optimistic here with the Rays. I really am. We already started the injury bug a little bit. Nick Anderson now out to July. That's going to force Peter Fairbanks into a lot of high leverage, and he was awesome in the playoffs in those situations. And we're going to get more of an extended look at him, maybe in that ninth inning role. They're going to piece it by committee. G-Man Choi announced today he's out for 5 weeks now, so you're going to start the season without him. So that's going to force Yoshi Sasugo into the lineup, I think, who might bat leadoff for the Rays based on what Kevin Cash has said. So I'm very cautiously optimistic. So I'm going to go with the Yankees for now. But don't count out my Rays. Don't ever count out my Rays. And that's what I'll say about it. But the Yankees, they're going to hit, that, and the bullpen is still very nasty.
And do you have the Red Sox at 3?
I have the Red Sox at 3. The Red Sox at 3.
I mean, I like it. I think everybody's got the Blue Jays at 2 in that division, but I'm all here for it. Moving over to the AL Central, I think it's the weakest division in baseball. I think it's weird. I think the East in both leagues are the best. AL East, NL East, top 2. The Centrals are the worst, the sellers, and then the Wests are right there in between. They have, competent teams, but, especially in the NL West, it's the top 2 make up for the rest of the 3. But anyway, in the AL Central, I'm going to go with the Twins, maybe by a game at most, just because everybody is picking the White Sox, and for good reason. They pick up the best closer in baseball, Liam Hendricks. They get Lance Lynn, who, talk about a career resurgence. The last time this guy was relevant was like in the 2011 World Series with the Cardinals, and then is just steadily along for years and years. And then last year has a Cy Young type year. So I love him with Giolito and Keuchel, but the reason I'm not picking the White Sox, Eloy Jimenez out for the first 5 months, and then the back end of their rotation, it's looking like Cease and Rodon, and those are very shaky guys. So over 162 games, I'm not sure how those guys will hold up, but 100% with you on the fact that if both these teams are in the playoffs, I'm taking the White Sox 100% just off those first 3, Giolito, Lynn, and Keuchel being a lot more reliable than the Twins rotation.
Yeah, and I stated my reasons for why I was skeptic on the Twins this year. The White Sox, I'm not ready to put them. I don't know if I'm ready to put them yet in that top 5 teams in baseball, like a lot of people are, and they're ready to write them as a ticket, them versus the Yankees. I don't know about that yet, but they're going for it. There's no way they are not going for it, even with or without Eloy Jimenez, which is a big blow to that lineup. And it's going to force Andrew Vaughn into some really big situations here as a rookie. He could be the rookie of the year if he plays his cards right there with Chicago. And everybody talked about Tony La Russa. Why would you bring in a guy like that and his past and things he may have said? Take all that out of the equation. This is a young team that has some veterans on it, like a Jose Abreu, a Lance Lynn, a Dallas Keuchel. They're trying to learn how to win. I don't know. And last year they underperformed. They didn't make the playoffs with that team. They faltered down the line. I think Tony La Russa might put them over the hump. I really do, because he's done it his entire career. And he may be 76 years old, but you just have it, I think. And I think this is kind of a team that may kind of get him into it because it's so lively. I think the opposite of like a lot of people, that he's going to hate the bat flips. He's going to hate this and that. I think the opposite. I think he's going to find almost a new love for the game, kind of living young guys. And I mean, and those guys, I don't think you should be hesitant about a guy like this. This is a Hall of Fame man. This is one of the top 5, top 10 managers of all time that you're playing for here. So, and it is a division for the taking. So I am going to take Chicago there. And I also am going to say watch for Kansas City. Slowly but surely, they're kind of coming out of that rebuild stage a little bit. Their lineup looks really strong, really, really strong. I'm not sure about the pitching still, but the lineup looks really strong. And in a weak division, I could see them. I think they're going to place third in this division, and they're going to push for second.
I also have them third in the division. I don't have them pushing for second. I like the lineup with bringing in Santana, bringing in Benintendi. I think Soler might lead the league in home runs. Solar power. The guy is just, I mean, every barrel the ball's flying 450 feet. Obviously, it does come down to the pitching. They're 2 young guys, Brad Keller and Brady Singer. Certainly a lot of potential there, and I think it'll come down to them for just how competitive they can be if they can compete with the White Sox and the Twins at the top. And then the Indians, they've just lost so much. And then I have the Tigers rounding out that one. Although they did have some additions, Wilson Ramos, Renato Nunez from the Orioles had a sneaky nice year last year. So they had some additions, but still have them at the cellar in that division. Let's go to the AL West. It's tricky because it's one of the best pitchers in baseball. Verlander doesn't pitch for the Astros, but their rotation was almost still their strength last year. We saw a lot of their lineup struggle for whatever reason. Bregman down year. Springer had was shaky at times. Altuve very down year. And we're not going to get into the trash cans and why that could possibly be that they had a down year. They just had a down year, 60-game season, very little spring training, whatever. I have them at the top of the division just because of Verlander being back. I like Greinke as the 2, McCullers as the 3. The biggest thing for them is Framber Valdez being out for the year. He injured himself a couple weeks ago. This was their most dependable piece last year. This was the guy they counted on. He pitched great in the postseason. And losing him is big, but I still have them at the top. I like the A's. I think the A's are right where they want to be. They're never chosen, and they like it that way. Because they don't spend the money. They're not the flashy team, but they did what they normally do in the offseason. They shored up the back of the bullpen for what they could. They had to let Hendricks go because they couldn't pay him. They had to let Soria go because they couldn't pay him. But they brought in Trevor Rosenthal. They re-signed Petit, and they got Sergio Romo as well. But it comes down to their young pitching. For me, Luzardo, Minaya, Bassett, that's what it comes down to for the A's. If those guys can improve upon, their kind of rookie second years last year, then this team can win the division.
Yeah, and they also need their 2 best hitters, Chapman and Olsen, to step up. They have down years across the board for those 2 guys. Not question their defense; they're world-class defenders, but I think they need to pick it up at the plate. But like you said, I'm not ready to throw in the towel on the Astros yet. And people can say whatever they want about what happened in the past. I think this is a damn good team still, as evidenced by last year. They were 1 game away from going to the World Series. Yeah. Okay, they were crushing the ball in the playoffs. They're not going anywhere, in my opinion. And that is a blow, not having Framber Valdez on that team. But I think Jose Urquidy is going to take a big step forward. He's one of the more nastiest pitchers, I think, in all of baseball. And I think you're going to see that this year in a full 162-game season. Zach Greinke is obviously a good veteran to hold the fort down. We'll see if he still has some left in the tank. I think he does. I think he's still kind of a lower tier ace that can get the job done for the Astros. And they're going to I think they're going to hit the ball. I really do. Listen, these guys are talented. There's no doubt about it. They've hit the ball their entire career. Before any of this stuff happened, they had 1 year. It was a really bad year. I mean, we know, but they can still hit the ball. They were able to get Michael Brantley to come back who balked on Toronto, which I think was a great move for him. Losing George Springer is really big there at the top of the lineup, but I think this is the Astros division for the taking right now. And I think it's definitely Astros and A's. The rest of this division is dreadful. And it is dreadful. And I hate saying that because the best player in the game is in this division, but it's dreadful.
Yeah, the expectations for the Angels are who knows? Because we don't know. I want to see Otani pitch every fifth day and hit DH every other four. I think that would be exciting in itself because we haven't seen him really do that yet. And he
And
was
he's
like
been getting rocked a little
historically
bit on the
bad,
mound too. In
historically
spring, he
bad
was
on the
getting
mound
rocked.
last year. Yeah. Um, the Mariners are still up and coming. They got some nice pieces, but I don't think they're ready to compete with the Astros and the A's. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Angels starting. I mean, their starting ace opening day is Dylan Bundy. What else needs to be said? I know he had a great year last year, but or better year, but it's still so that's why I wouldn't be surprised if the Mariners overtake the Angels for third in that division. If the Angels starting pitching falters as it has many years in the past. I just can't wait to ever see Mike Trout in the playoffs, but again, this is not the year for that, unfortunately. Moving over to the National League, we'll start in the West. We got the two big dogs at the top, the defending champion LA Dodgers and the very fast approaching San Diego Padres. I have them 1-2 in that division, and kind of everybody else well behind. I'm assuming you have the same thing.
Oh yeah, Dodgers 1, Padres 2, and then after that, it's like who cares? None of those other teams are going to be competing. I mean, the Giants, though, as per usual, are going to do everything they can to try to stay relevant when they need to blow it up. But once again, basing off their offseason moves here, of like an Anthony DeSclafani, he's not bad enough to tank your team. He's just good enough to keep you in it. And it just sums up what the Giants have been doing for the last 5 years. And even more resurgent seasons by Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford have given management more reason to think, oh, we're still living off of this. No, you're not. You're not. And Donovan Solano is probably going to plummet right back to earth this year too, after you're buying into him. But that's my little rant on the Giants because I can't stand how the Giants have run the game the last 5 years. But this is the Dodgers division, and the Padres are definitely right there as well.
Right there with you. Going over to the NL Central, I think it's a weak division, but I think it's still going to be very competitive. I don't see the winner of this division winning more than 90 games because I see the top four there. There's very little margin between them. Maybe you disagree, but we got the Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers, and Reds. I think the Reds will finish fourth in this division, but I don't think they're horrible. They certainly have a lot of firepower in that lineup. Obviously, they lose Bauer, so they still have Castillo and Sonny Gray. It'll come down to them too, how much of the load they can carry for the other three in the starting rotation. For me, I do have the Cardinals at 1 with the Arenado signing. I think Jack Flaherty will have a bounce back year and show that he's one of the top 7-8 pitchers in baseball, like we thought he would do last year. He took a little bit of a step back, but I think he'll be back this year. I have the Cubs at number 2. I'm not high on them, especially for the starting pitcher. They lost Darvish and they lost Kyle Schwarber. I mean, he wasn't a huge role for them last year, but last year, Baez hit 203, Chris Bryant 206, Anthony Rizzo 220. If these guys can improve at all, I mean, those are historically bad averages. I know Johnny Jackson is I'll say this. You're getting a host that respects the batting average stat now. You know, Johnny Jackson and all this new school analytics don't respect the RBI, don't respect the batting average. Listen, the average and the RBI are back with me. Nick, I don't know about you, but I'm not buying all the new school stuff, all these RWCs, whatever. If you hit 202, that's a horrible year. I don't care about any other letters and numbers and configurations. That's what you're getting with me.
If it's not if I can't find it on a baseball card, then I'm throwing it out the window. I like batting average, I like home runs, and I like RBIs. I like it just like that, and I don't like BABIP or WRC or WRX, whatever I don't understand them. I don't want to understand them. I'll just say what my eyes tell me, and I'll move on. I'll move forward with that one.
A true friend of the program, Nick Geddes. He will certainly be invited back as long as I have anything to say about it. Nick, give me your NL Central predictions.
I got it placed exactly how you said it, 1 through 5, in that order. I don't know if there's a lot of, I'm not really intrigued by a lot in this division. I just see a bunch of mediocrity here. And I think that's the worst place to be in all sports is in the middle. And I think that's where the Cubs find themselves. I think that's where the Brewers find themselves and the Reds find themselves, just stuck in the middle. The Brewers, I think, have a little bit of intrigue for me because in this division, I like what they have at the top of the rotation, and I like what they have in the back end of the bullpen. I do love that a lot with Woodruff and Burns, and then Williams and Hader. Williams and Hader, I don't think you're going to find a better 8-9 combo in the league. So I like what they have from that standpoint, but I don't like what they have around Christian Yelich, really, who I think is going to bounce back this year also. But I don't like what they have around him in the hitting department. The Cubs, for all the reasons you said, if Jake Arrieta is your number 2 in 2021, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. So no trust there at all. I'm not even going to talk about the Pirates at all because this is like one of the worst teams I've ever seen on paper going into this season. So they will safely sit in the dweller. But I'm gonna go with the Cardinals for, as I talked about earlier with Arenado. I think I don't think they're a championship contender actually, because I'm very skeptic on a lot of the pitching actually around Jack Flaherty there in the rotation. But I think they're good enough to win this division and get through.
The Pirates, 19-41 last year, on pace for a whopping 51 wins. And I don't think I would take the over if you set it at that for this year.
Not a chance.
I mean, I'm looking at their lineup and I'm saying, who is this outside of, they lost their big name, Josh Bell.
Who's starting opening day for the Pirates? That's the stuff we need to know.
I don't know that answer, and I should, but I have no idea.
Is it Kyle Crick?
I don't even have a guess, and that's on me. I got to raise my hand there. But we'll move on to the NL East. I think it's the best division in baseball. We already talked about the Marlins, and then above them, I have the Phillies.
Wow.
Yeah, the Phillies. They had that huge offseason before last year, and it didn't really pan out the way they did. And they pretty much said, "All right, we're just gonna hit the run it back button. We're just gonna sign all the same guys." I think it's huge that they re-signed Didi. I think he's almost the core of that team, even though he's kind of maybe gloss over his name, but I think he's the glue. I like the bullpen was historically bad last year, and they did shore up that a little bit with Archie Bradley and Jose Alvarado, two filthy guys. And I think this team is. I'm not saying they're. Although I'm saying they're going to finish in last, I think they'll win 78 games. They'll finish, 4 games under 500, 3 games under 500. But I do have them in last because I'm high on the Marlins and I like the Nationals rotation. And until Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin prove me otherwise, I'm still going to slot them at 3. I like the Josh Bell Schwarber behind Trey Turner and Juan Soto. I feel like it could work. I know these guys punch out so much, but I feel like they could have a career resurgence behind Soto. We've already talked about the Mets, and we finally get to talk about my Braves. Man, I was livid when I saw MLB's. I've talked about this on Johnny's show before. They had them at 4th in the division. MLB. The Instagram, their prediction, and I went flipping tables. The team finishes 1 win short of the World Series. Yeah, you can make the choking jokes later on another show. 1 win short of the World Series, and they didn't have their best pitcher. Mike Soroka is their best pitcher. They didn't have him. I'm very comfortable saying if they have Mike Soroka, they win the World Series. I don't think that's that big of a thing to say. He's their best pitcher. They lost him. I'll give you this. 33% of the Braves starts last season came from one of these 4 guys: Huascar Ynoa, Touki Toussaint, Robbie Erlin, and Josh Tomlin. A third of our starts came from these 4 bots. And we did as well as we did. We get Charlie Morton from the Rays. We get Mike Soroka back in a few weeks. He's making his first appearance in spring training today. Albies is back healthy. He spent half the year out. Then the whole postseason, he had a wrist injury. I'm stoked for this team, and I can't wait for them to beat the Dodgers in the NLCS, and it'll be the sweetest thing because of last year. Rest of my case.
I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on the Braves. This is their division. This is a stacked division, don't get me wrong, but I'm based on what I saw last year. I was very impressed by the Braves with, like you said, they pieced it together in that rotation. And you get a guy like Charlie Morton, who this is a guy who's a big game pitcher. He knows what he's doing here. This might be his last hurrah here. He really wants to win a World Series, getting very close last year. And I think he's in an even better spot there in Atlanta to do it. And the three, even before Soroka gets back, I mean, Fried, Morton, and Ian Anderson, and then you get Soroka to add to that. Come on now. I'll take that rotation any day. I mean, I think Ian Anderson's he was nasty last year when we got to finally see him. And I love Freddie Freeman. I am a Freddie Freeman homer. I don't understand why this guy's not talked about in the top, whatever you want to call it, players in the game, but he is that. So I am all in on them, and getting Ozuna back as well, who could have gone somewhere else, and he decides to come back. So Ozuna, Acuna, Albies, Freeman, d'Arnaud, Christian Pache come in here and getting a second look at him. Same thing with Austin Riley. I like what the Braves are doing, and I'd argue that they're right there with the Pods, I think, chasing the Dodgers. I think this is the three. One of those teams is going to make the World Series, I think. It's going to be Dodgers, Braves, or Padres. And I think they're right on. I don't think the Dodgers are indestructible. I really don't.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I'm trying not to be the homer, but I did not pick the Braves to win the World Series last year. I had the Dodgers. And so because of the sacrifice and the homer that I set aside from last year, I've preserved it for this year. The Braves will win the 2021 World Series. And that's it. Nick, you can throw out your World Series champ too. Just as long as it's not the Rays.
I don't know how many arguments I can make for the Rays. I mean, you got to get to the World Series 2 years in a row. I don't see it happening. Yeah. World Series. I'll tell you what, I will root for Atlanta outside of the Rays. I just will. I will do it. I will, because for some reason I've always been infatuated by the Braves. I don't know why, but I have been. So I will root for the Braves in that standpoint. Anybody with the Dodgers or the Yankees, please. I'm just please don't make that the World Series. I beg of you. I will not pick the Yankees for anything. I'm going to go Astros coming out of the AL, and that's because I really don't want the Yankees to win it, and I don't think the White Sox are there yet. So I'm going to go with Astros in the AL. I'm going to go Braves in the NL. And I'm not going to give you my winner yet, but I'm going to say that's my final.
Nick's leaving us on a cliffhanger. Nick, we really appreciate you coming on today. Both of us are really looking forward to Thursday, opening day. Should be a national holiday. My dad's taking the day off, as he does every year, just to watch baseball all day. We hope you're as excited as we are. And that is it for today's episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Once again, I'm your new host, Jason Hamby. With me was Nick Geddes. Thanks for watching.